Blog Talk Radio.
Across the country and around the world, streaming live on the internet, it's Real Estate Coaching Radio, bringing you the latest news, interviews, and secrets of the top producers. Hosted by award-winning real estate coaches, Tim and Julie Harris. Well, hello everyone. I'm Tim Ventura, filling in for Tim and Julie Harris. Welcome back to Casual Friday here on Real Estate Coaching Radio. This week, we're going to be joined by Glenn Shimkus from Docusign, who's going to tell us about how this remarkable digital signature tool is changing the way that agents do business. Now, this is a live show, so call in with your questions to 347-857-1195 or write me questions at realestatecoachingradio.com. Also, if you haven't done so already, take a moment to visit freecoachingcallsforagents.com and schedule your appointment right now for a free one-on-one coaching call with a trained professional coach from our staff, including Tim or Julie Harris. We have just completed a full overhaul of the Free Coaching Calls for Agents website. So take a look. Tell me what you think. We are very proud of it, and we would love to get you scheduled to talk to one of our coaches. Okay, so again, we are talking to Glenn Shimkus today from Docusign, and before we bring him on air, let me give you a little bit of background information. Glenn is currently the Vice President of Product Management at Docusign, and he's responsible for the company's products in the real estate industry. He was previously the co-founder and CEO of a company called Cartavi, which was acquired by Docusign in 2013. Now, Glenn is a technology enthusiast, a gadget aficionado, and an entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in the fields of document management, mobile applications, and cloud computing. So this gentleman has tons of experience, and I am just overjoyed to be able to have him on to share a little bit with us. So let's bring him on. And Glenn, thank you for joining us. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Excited to be here today, Tim.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I can't tell you how pleased I am to have you on. You know, and one of the reasons is Docusign is just transforming real estate. I mean, you know, you can't, well, we do the show every day, and, you know, I would say Docusign comes up on a regular basis on the show, but you can't talk to more than 2 or 3 agents in a day without hearing somebody talk about Docusign. So what you guys are doing is, I mean, absolutely transformative. So, again, thank you for joining us to tell us about it.
I'm really excited, and for us, it's such a pleasure to be really a vibrant part of the real estate community and helping kind of move the industry forward when it comes to really taking advantage of technology and ultimately delivering like a world-class experience to the buyers and sellers that you know the agents deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, let me start out by asking you a little bit about yourself and your background, and I guess what got you into document management and kind of the path that led you to Cartavi and then ultimately to Docusign.
Yeah, it's an interesting background. I mean, I'm a tech guy, I guess a tech nerd at heart. I've programmed since I was in college. I actually paid for college by programming back in the day at a company many people know by the name of Unisys, although it's not that tremendous a brand name or well known as it was years ago today. But programmed my way through college. I actually started programming mobile devices in the early 90s, you know, and a funny thing shows I guess a lack of intellect, but actually I studied economics and didn't decide to go into technology because I wanted to be in sales because I thought that's where the money was. But as it turns out, more and more of what I did and enjoyed doing, most importantly, was dealing with technology and writing programs. And what I learned is quickly that there's tremendous opportunity for me to make a difference at you know companies I was working for by driving technology initiatives forward. And as it turns out, I worked for a company by the name of Platinum Technology, which was one of the largest software companies in the 90s. And when I was there and I was in the sales management side of the house, and we had acquired literally like 50-some companies in a matter of 4 years. And so we kept getting together with the executive team, and they'd ask, what do we need to do to enable sales? And I would constantly say, these are the things. And it's the familiar adage, be careful what you ask for, because they moved me from sales management, and they said, you've got a tech background. Here's what we need to be able to do. We need to get information out to the sales force from marketing and a lot of documentation. And so that's really when I started getting into the whole world of document management, in the mid-90s, and it just took off from there and evolved, where I was doing it for companies, and then I started a company to do it, and then that got acquired, and then started a couple other companies in the space, and was literally working at a tech company. I was a CTO, and the company was focused on, it was like an electronic safe deposit box for high net worth individuals to store and share documents with advisors and family members across the globe. And then lo and behold, my wife becomes a realtor. And so this is 2007, 2008. And at that time, I was simply trying to help my wife be more productive because she's a great agent. She loves working with her clients in the housing market and customer service and all these things, but she was struggling with technology. Like, she's out on the road and someone says, hey, can you fax me this or email me this? And so the original intent was simply to find something for my wife, and when I looked at what the options were, I thought there was an opportunity, and so I went after my co-founder, Paul, who I'd been working with at the time, and said, hey, I think there's an opportunity, and then, and really drove it from there.
Oh, okay. So that was Kartavi then, right? And then that was real estate specific from what I'm interpreting.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's what we did is we saw there was an opportunity. There was a real struggle in real estate, and this, again, is back in 2008, 2009, to be able to store and capture and share electronically all the documents that drive a transaction and invite all the participants into there. And then really, most importantly, too, was to be able to take advantage of this wonderful mobile technology that was out there, so that when, my wife takes clients out all day and comes home, and then her and I go to dinner, and, of course, as you know, right, what happens? The phone rings, right, and someone says, hey, can you send me something? That she was able to take care of it there, as opposed to either driving home to take care of something, driving to the office, or, it was really about being able to service her clients.
Oh, yeah. I know with real estate, that's such a challenge. And agents are such mobile individuals as well, right? That makes it a challenge as well because, it's not just the dinner table, but, they're on the road all day long. And then the issue is getting to the files or, even if they don't need to send it, just checking something, checking a date, checking a time, when is this due, when is that due, has this person touched it, has that person done what they need to. That's all stuff it's really a challenge, and it drives definitely that digital storage of the documents. So, I think you were in the right time in the right place, too. Now, that was during the crash, though, right? So you guys kind of had an uphill struggle.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many friends and family members are like, okay, hold on a second. This is 2008, 2009. Economy's coming down. Housing market's taking a substantial hit. And they're like, so you're starting a company and you're going to focus on real estate. Yeah, good luck with that. But, the reality is that's when you invest, and that's when you kind of really go after those opportunities. And quite frankly, the folks that were in the space really, I think, took a step back, as many folks in many industries did, and it gave us an opportunity while things were collapsing and people were really kind of going back to focus on the core and even figuring out what they wanted to do, for us to take our time and do it the right way, understand the needs, talk to people, learn, listen, watch the industry, and then really come out when the market started recovering. We were in the right position at that time.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't say, even because, or even despite the crash, or maybe because of it, the impression that I had, thinking back to that period, I met a lot of agents back then who were re-envisioning how their business could work, and we've all had this idea of going paperless, right? It's been, drilled into our heads since like 2000, but in that period of time, a lot of them were thinking, how can we become more lean, nimble, and agile? So it seems like in a lot of ways that could have been the perfect time to start the business.
And it was, and it really was a convergence. And you're so right, because what happened is people had to rethink their business through this, right? In 04, 05, brokerages had these large support staffs in many cases, and they had people that you can call in and say, hey, grab this document, fax it to Julie or whatever. And that went away, and it went away really quickly. And so people had to reimagine the business, reimagine how they would focus, and become more productive. And at the same time, again, as luck would have it, you've got the cloud and a lot of developments that were taking part from that technology perspective. You had mobile devices really taking a hold with the iPhone and, iPad and tablets coming around. So there were so many factors that really kind of came together at that point in time that made it an exceptional and probably the best point in time to go after what we were doing.
Yeah, well, now, with Docusign, one of the things that's interesting to me is when I think of Docusign, I kind of think of a more generic signature platform, right? But then with Kartavi, when you guys got acquired, that's them kind of reaching out into a specialized space. Is that something that Docusign does? Are they kind of, I don't know what you would call it, getting more specialized in many ways?
Yeah, and I think, as we've evolved as a company, I think that's really important is when DocuSign's been around, and our focus one of our early industries and adoption has always been in the real estate market. And what we saw when we talked to folks and the folks that brought Kartavi into Docusign realized is that there's so much broader opportunity there, and fundamentally the vision is like if I look at my wife's job as an agent at a very high level, I could say she's got two primary functions: find business and close business. And what we want to do is be that hub of the closed business, and part of that is signing, part of that is sharing documents, part of it's activity, part of it is compliance checklist. And what we want to be able to do is bring together those pieces. And, of course, DocuSign started as the e-signature platform, but DocuSign always did more around what they kind of called at the time cloud documents. And with the acquisition of Kartavi, what we've really got into right now is this whole transaction management space and being able to be that hub of the real estate transaction from inception through closing, bringing together these important pieces and doing so in a way that's A, really simple for agents and buyers and sellers and brokers to use, but B, just as importantly, provides real value to them, and it helps them move that transaction along, service their customers, and even, in some cases give them, their family time back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that, giving them the family time back, that's definitely not something that, anyone should gloss over, because managing all this paperwork, especially for agents, right? Because in many ways, a lot of agents they're one-person shops, or even if they're not one-person shops, they're expected to manage their paperwork more than folks in maybe a larger corporate environment. And so, by being able to help them just manage and organize those documents as well as do the electronic signatures, that's giant. I mean, that is a giant time savings for people.
Right. And what we're trying to do is bring together those pieces to make it simple, so you're not, going here to do a signature, going here then to share the document, and going over here to fill it in. And, we really want to bring those pieces together, because that's the expectation. That's what the agents want and need is one solution that's cohesive, not multiple pieces where they have to go back and forth.
Now, I'd like to ask how your role and your focus has changed. Now, since Kartavi was acquired by DocuSign, how has that kind of transitioned, I guess, as you've become part of this larger, fall under this larger umbrella?
Honestly, that's one of the exciting parts of being a part of DocuSign, and it was, when we made the decision to sell the company to DocuSign, some people said, well, why? You guys are doing so well and on such a great path. But for us, we knew that in order to take it to the next level and really, take our product even further, we needed to be a part of that larger organization. And for us, DocuSign is the trusted brand for e-signature. It's got a great reputation, innovative company. But what's happened is we've got the core team that was that was Cardiff. And by the way, every single person still here. We've doubled the staff that works specifically on development for the Cardiff product, which is now Docusign transaction rooms. But now I've got all of these resources around us. And so as we do broker rollouts, right, we've got a team now of 6 or 8 folks that are just kind of project managers helping our broker customers implement the product. We've got a training department, and all of this is like, for us, has been an instant on, right? Because we're now part of Docusign, and Docusign's, north of 1,000 employees now. I've got all these resources, and by the way, not just here in the States, but across the globe, that I can call on to help us, make sure that we're doing the right thing, we're innovating the product, but most importantly, that we've got these resources around us. So for me, my role hasn't changed. I'm still in charge of the product. I'm still setting the roadmap. I'm still leading the development team. I'm still making sure that our QA department, is turning out a really clean product before it goes to market. I just don't have some of the other responsibilities like accounting and HR and things of that nature. And if anything, it's allowed me more time and energy to focus on what was the core success of Cardiff, which is our transaction management product, but also now to have all of that support around us has been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just, when you mentioned the support just now, that touched on something that I was thinking about. When I was doing show, I do notes and questions before each show, and I've been on the receiving end of, many Docusign documents over the last few years. And, and when I thought about it, I thought, what if I wanted to sign up for this? What if we wanted to use it? We could use it for our business. There are all sorts of stuff that we could use it for. And I thought, well, that would be kind of scary. But from what you're saying, there's a lot of hand-holding. There's a lot of support. You guys are doing broker onboardings where you'll take a whole office and get their whole document workflow set up, it sounds like.
Yeah, and our goal with everything we do is we have these 3 initials, an acronym we've created internally called TTV, time to value. And our goal is that time to value is as short as it can be, right? We want to make sure that as soon as someone starts using Docusign, whether it's the transaction room product or the core e-signature product, that people can start, A, picking it up right away, and B, gaining value from it right away. Now, with that said, we realize people are at all ends of the spectrum in terms of comfort with mobile devices and apps and technology. And so for those that are kind of at the forefront and, are comfortable with it, we want to make sure that they can get going right away. For those that aren't, we've got training videos, we've got online support, we've got phone support, we've got all these, documents and videos available. We want to make sure that, we cover the gamut, because the reality is Docusign is used in so many places. I think all of the things I see from Gartner and the folks that, that cover, for example, the e-signature say that Docusign, that we have 80% of the global market. But people are using us for buying and selling real estate. They're using us to open a new account at their credit union. They're using Docusign for signing a parent release slip for their children at school. And so there's so many people using the product across the globe in so many different manners. And on one hand, it's a challenge, right? You have so many different use cases, but on the other hand, boy, I tell you, it's an exciting time to be a part of this company, because the world is out there waiting for us.
Oh, yeah. Well, the other thing that I find particularly exciting about e-signature is it seems like this is the last step before killing the monster that I like to call fax machines, because, these things they've been on their way out since their inception, right? There was a couple of years where fax machines were cool, and I think that was like the 1980s, and ever since then, people have been trying to get rid of them, and it seems like the one thing that's holding that up is signatures. Everything else can be digitized and all that kind of stuff, but that make your mark part of it, and that's what Docusign really handles, right? So that's, that seems like that could ultimately get rid of the fax machine entirely. And these days, and this is just speaking personally, but it's getting harder to fax things because fewer and fewer people actually have those machines. And so when you run across an organization that wants a fax, then all of a sudden there's all sorts of workarounds and stuff that that come into play with that. So.
Well, and you're so right on that. I mean, when you think about the process of trying to go digital or paperless, right? And honestly, when I was in tech back in the early and mid '90s, it was paperless at the enterprise, and the same struggles and challenges are there. But what happens is, and many times when you're in the middle of transacting in general, right, whether it's buying real estate or signing up a new account in your credit union, whatever it is, there's that signature, right, that says we're going to do business together, and I agree to these terms. And what happens so many times is the document or form is created electronically, it's shared with you electronically, and then you need to execute it or sign it. And what do? You print it off, you sign it with a pen and paper, and then you have to redigitize it, and then you have to get it back over to someone. And so the signature part has been one of those absolute last bastions and holding tanks of making sure that A, it's going to be legal, B, it's going to be secure, C, it's going to be trusted. And that's why Docusign as a company has spent so much in terms of the brand and the technology and the security and the availability that it's now, we're now trusted by, I think 12 or 13 of the largest banks in the U.S., 11 of the largest insurance companies. And, and the key is you don't have to take it out of the digital realm, make it paper and bring it back in. Our goal is to take that last step that's been the holdup and now make it electronic.
But now, do you think that everything these days is going mobile, right? And do you think that the mobile trend is just driving that even further in terms of closing that gap to get rid of paper? Because, those paper-based things are really relics of the big office days. Do you think that just kind of helps to I don't know what you call it, kill the monster even faster, I suppose?
Yeah, I think, for example, the tablet's a perfect example of kind of how you have this convergence of technologies and tools to make it happen. And so, many, many times I talk to realtors and they say, what, I love electronic signatures, but I don't want to lose that personal touch I have with my buyer or my seller. I want to be able to sit down with them. Part of my value is explaining this is what you're signing, this is where you need to sign. And so for us, we understand you need to handle both situations, right? You may have a buyer who's in Singapore right now. My wife last year had folks that completed a real estate transaction while the husband was on a month-long trip to Japan. And you're going to have cases where someone has to do something remote. But at the same time, because of this, the tablet, for example, and the iPad, we have, like within the Docusign Transaction Room product, any document you go to, there's a sign action. And it says, are all of the signers present? And if it's no, then you can tag it and send it off so someone can sign it remotely. But if the folks that you need to sign, John and Mary, are sitting in front of you, you can literally take and replace that paper, that contract that's in paper that needs to be signed and the pen with the tablet and your pointer finger and sign and walk people through, but then at the same time take advantage of the technology so you actually can snap a photo with the camera on that device of the people that are actually signing. You then have a picture of them in the location. You have the geo-coordinates tracked. You have a map of where they were. You have the IP address of the device. So it adds credibility and strength to that signature because the act of signing, that's the easy part, right? There's tons of apps out there available today, and you can sign, but the enforceability, the security, the protection of that's where Docusign, that we really shine as a company.
Oh, yeah. I think it's really intriguing. I sat down and I was thinking about this before the show, and again, I was kind of like, what goes into a signature, right? Because, when you think about it, it's ink on paper, which is exactly the same thing as all the other ink that's on the paper. The only difference is it's that intent, and then it's kind of the enforceability, too. And so I thought, I bet that the biggest challenge initially was just getting legal acceptance for Docusign as a digital alternative, and then over time it just seems like this will become, more and more a replacement as people realize, that a signature is, there's something to it, but only because everybody kind of gives it shared credibility, right?
Well, and if you think about it from a paper perspective, if I go into a bank and I sign something, if the bank really looked at it, they reject my signature because guess what? Most of the time, someone that's signing for me at the bank, it's my wife, right? And so she'll, sign a check with my signature. When you talk about taking that to an electronic standpoint, you have so much more that's wrapped around that. how the person got the communication to sign. You know when they accepted it. You know where they were. You know the device they were on. You can put a picture associated with it. There's so much more that you can wrap around that. But you're right. It starts with just the comfort and the legality of that, and that's where, a lot of people don't understand the e-Sign Act in the U.S. was actually signed back in the Clinton administration. It just, any new technology certainly takes time, but you also have to make sure that, like, for example, in real estate, that the banks are going to accept when you sign, contract documents for real estate using Docusign or electronic signature, are the banks going to be okay with it? And that's why you have, banks that are forward-looking and really at the forefront, like a Bank of America. They actually have a electronic signature guide for real estate agents. And interestingly enough, if you actually look at it, the screenshots and what they talk about are actually the Docusign screenshots. But it's important. You have to first and foremost believe that the courts are going to back it up, which they do.
Yeah. Well, and you said that the e-Sign Act went back in 1996. So is it pretty much universally accepted then? I mean, at this point in time, is this something where it has just as much weight as a standard signature?
Absolutely, and the key is not just the actual signing, but the enforceability, because a lot of the e-Sign Act just says, an electronic signature will be accepted, but then you have folks like a Bank of America that said, yes, however, you are going to need proof that the consumer accepted, that there was a disclosure that they had the opportunity to sign electronically and the right to sign not electronically if they desired, and so there's these other things that kind of sit on top of just the ability to sign electronically that banks will require, from any technology that they're going to accept, an e-signature from, for example.
Well, and then it sounds like one of the big parts of this, again, where the rubber kind of meets the road, so to speak, is Docusign is providing that independent, third-party, neutral signature tool. So in a way that's getting around the potential for forgery, because or not just forgery, but should I say nefarious conduct in getting a signature, right? And that
right.
way the court will say, look, they're using Docusign. It's a process. It's a workflow for getting a signature that we're familiar with, and so we'll back it up because they're using something that we're familiar with. Does that
right.
give it more weight?
It does, and for us, we can do something as simple as I can send you something to sign, but I also could say, hey, Tim, when I send this over to you, you're going to have to enter a code, and what we're going to do is we're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll give that to you via the phone, so that when you get that, you're the only person who's going to know that code. We also have the ability to validate information, so we could force you to answer questions like if you ever gone to log into something and says, here's 4 addresses, which one of these have you lived at? Here's 3 jobs, which one of these have you worked at? And where you have to validate, there's that extra authentication that's there, and that's why Docusign as a tool has been so successful, because it can be something as simple as you need to sign something on your iPhone for a parent-teacher release, but it could be something as complicated as in the highly regulated industry of financial services, for example, where you need second-factor authentication or you need additional ways to prove out that when I send something to Tim to sign, that it's Tim, and we know with great certainty that it was Tim that signed that document.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking about Docusign, and we are going to get into some of the reasons that this is absolutely a must-have tool for agents. According to the National Association of Realtors, only 10% of agents complete an amazing 90% of all transactions because they have a coach. If you want the production and performance that comes with being a top producer, then you need one too. Not just any coach, but the leaders in coaching today, Tim and Julie Harris. Don't just take our word for it. Listen to what HGTV star and Atlanta top producer Colette McDonald has to say.
Hi, my name is Colette McDonald, and I'm with RE/MAX in Atlanta, Georgia. I just wanted to take a moment and give a shout out to Tim and Julie Harris. I've been a coaching client of theirs for the last 4 years. When I first started in this business 12 years ago, I was very successful, did a great amount of business, averaged between $8 and $10 million a year. When I contracted with Tim and Julie to be my graduate level coaches, my production increased by 20% per year. I am now trending $30 million this year. That's amazing results over 4 years of working with Tim and Julie Harris. I highly recommend them. Tiger Woods has a coach. And why does he have a coach? Because he can't see his swing. If you do what they tell you to, you will see huge results. I am living proof.
Only Tim and Julie Harris provide powerful one-on-one coaching along with all the lead generation systems, scripts, presentations, team building, and business planning tools you need to dominate your real estate market. We offer affordable pricing with no long-term contracts, and our entire coaching staff are trained professional agents with top producing track records. Take action now and visit us online at freecoachingcallsforagents.com to schedule your free coaching call. There's no risk, no obligation, just a free, personal, one-on-one call with a trained professional coach. Join the elite 10% of agents who make all the difference in today's market. Visit freecoachingcallsforagents.com to get started. Again, that's freecoachingcallsforagents.com. And we're back. I am Tim Ventura, filling in for Tim and Julie Harris. Welcome back to Casual Friday on Real Estate Coaching Radio. This week we are talking to Glenn Shimkus from Docusign, who's already kind of given us an interesting overview of how this document signature as well as kind of content management system is transforming the industry. And so we're going to continue talking about that, and we're going to learn why this is really a must-have tool for agents. So I'm going to bring Glenn back on. And Glenn, I want to thank you again for being with us. We were talking about, the courts, I guess, being able to really back up these tools. One of the things I wondered was, do you think that biometrics are going to continue to increase with Docusign? Are you guys going to get into fingerprint scanning like my iPhone has fingerprint stuff built into it, something like that?
I think, all of that continues to build up. Ultimately, when you apply a signature, it's your proof point or authorization to do something. And so I think what we'll see is that, we're looking at, we continue to explore, like, how do we use new technologies? And, our job, quite frankly, is to continue to innovate and stay ahead of what's out there. And so we look at the mobile devices. We have been experimenting with things like Google Glass, and, certainly biometrics is an important thing. And so I think what we'll see is that those will be additional proof points. But fundamentally, I think you're still going to see that the signature really is a mark needs to get applied.
Yeah. In fact, during the break, I was thinking about that old bluesman standing at the crossroads, right? And I was, there's the devil come up, but maybe he's holding Docusign instead of the contract. So yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same, I guess. You still have to have that signature for some things, but. Well, I'll tell you, for agents, I don't know. Do you know offhand how widely this is adopted? I've heard, if I remember right, something like over 10%, maybe up to almost half of all agents are using Docusign now. Some enormous number, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really has been tremendous. I mean, we've been a partner for the National Association of Realtors, and we're the official and exclusive e-signature provider to realtors, and just a great relationship that we have with them. And, our goal is to continue to drive value and help realtors not replace kind of key components, but to enhance that, so that ultimately the realtors can drive the transactions faster, make sure they're more secure, and help them ultimately deliver that exceptional experience to the buyer and seller, because that's really what it's about. It's a big time in the life of someone who's buying or selling a home. In fact, within the last 10 days, I actually sold a home and bought a home. And this is my business is in this industry. My wife was the realtor on both transactions, but it's still a stressful time. And so to have tools and technologies that help kind of further that experience and further that goal is just so tremendous, and it's so exciting to see what's happening in the industry, the innovation, the adoption, and it's such a fun industry to be a part of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, have you guys noticed, and I'm just curious about this, but, there's always the early adopters and then kind of that main body of people take a little longer. Have you guys kind of hit that early adopter market? Has it slowed down yet as things have started to mature, or is it still kind of growing like wildfire?
It is craziness. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, honestly, I've worked for some high-growth companies and some companies that have just done some amazing things, and I've never been a part of a company like Docusign. I mean, we're just growing. There's so much applicability. I mean, if you really think about it, when you talk about signing, for example, if you talk about an accounting system, the folks in finance or accounting within a company will be familiar with it and use it, but that's, 10% of an organization's staff. Or Salesforce automation or CRM, the Salesforce and maybe marketing people use it. But with Docusign, everybody needs to sign. And it's not just everyone within the enterprise. It's small business. It's people on a personal level as well. So the growth has been tremendous, and we're really hit that stride. And so one of the books I always enjoyed and read many years ago and had the pleasure to meet the author, Jeffrey Moore, is Crossing the Chasm. And it's really about, it's terrific when you get early adopters, but really the key when you hit your stride is you cross that chasm, as you talked about, go mainstream. And I think Docusign's there, and in fact, I mean, for us, the most exciting thing is Docusign's becoming the verb. Did you Docusign it? Not just, it's like FedEx and Kleenex, and it's really fun to be a part of an organization that's doing some wonderful things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a guest on yesterday who had talked about, she was talking about going paperless, and she was saying from an agent marketing perspective, right, what they market to, end user customers, one of the big things in the past had been going paperless, and she thought that in terms of marketing verbiage, that might be passé by next year because it's becoming so ubiquitous that, I think her words were, well, isn't everybody paperless, But it's interesting to think about, looking back 10 years, right, what a challenge it was. And it's like, and now it's, in a weird way, we're almost there. And you guys are like right at the very heart of that. And that, for me, that's what makes Docusign so exciting, is that you're right there.
And you're so right. I mean, one of my favorite stories, a good friend of ours, Kendall Young, she's in Southern Cal, and she tells this story all the time, and I love it. She was working with a widower, and I think she was in her early 90s, right? So, she's been around for a while, and technology has just evolved, right? I mean, a lot of this stuff, so, she may not be familiar with it. And Kendall is someone who is one of those folks who's just right at the forefront, loves technology, but technology to help her better service her clients. And so she said, okay, I'm going in, I'm meeting, with this 90-something-year-old widower. I'm going to bring paper with. And that's very unlike Kendall. She's very much a digital agent. But she brought paper with because she thought that was what the client was going to be looking for. And so she started having this lady sign a bunch of documents. And it was so funny. She goes, all of a sudden she gets up, and she goes and grabs an iPad, and she goes, gosh, I was really hoping we were going to be able to do something with this to sign all these things. And if you think about it, you can never assume, because for her, she said, every time she's signing or initialing or checking, that's work for her, with her hands. And it was a challenge. Whereas with the e-signature and taking advantage of the technology, it's basically point and click, so it actually improved the experience for her. And at the end of the day, you just can't assume, because there's going to be people in their 20s that may not want to do it. Now, of course, that's few and far between, but just because someone may be in their 70s or 80s or 90s doesn't mean that they're not going to expect the same technology.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's really exciting, too, because that means that the acceptance for this could be more universal, right? Because a lot of times, and again, this is maybe kind of coming up in this growing digital era, but, yeah, I think I've made that assumption in the past, too. It's like, especially with someone like my mom, as much as I love her, she's digitally impaired sometimes, and it's kind of like, okay, maybe we'll do this a little old school, but what you're saying is this acceptance could be really widespread, kind of like using Google, right? Even kind of technophobes still use Google if they're going to do a search. So maybe Docusign could be kind of the signatory Google of the future, so to speak.
Well, that's what we're shooting for, and at the end of the day, it comes back to what you talked about earlier. Mobile has been a big driver for us, because who doesn't walk around with a smartphone or a tablet these days? Everybody has it. And the power of Docusign is you can take advantage of that powerful device to be able to sign things and do business and do it in a very secure manner. And it's been certainly a huge bonus for us as we've continued to grow our global footprint.
Well, let me ask you, for the few remaining agents out there who aren't using Docusign, or maybe in a less joking way, for agents who have probably been thinking about it but haven't been sure how to get started, how should agents kind of get involved with Docusign? Do they just go to the website and kind of sign up for an information request or something like that?
Yeah, we've tried to make it really simple to get started. So for anyone in real estate, for example, you can go to docusign.com/realestate, and right from there we talk about our solutions. And again, we've got both not only the e-signature but the transaction management piece. And you can literally sign up on our website for a free trial to start using the product, or you can download the app. And we've got iPhone, iPad, Android phone, Android tablet, Microsoft Surface, the Kindle Fire. So, the app is everywhere, and you can start using it and trying it. And it's one of those things where I can't tell you how many times we've talked to someone and they've said, once I started doing it 1 or 2 or 3 times, I look back and go, I cannot believe how I wasn't using this sooner.
Oh, yeah. Well, now let me ask you about pricing. I'm not sure if you're comfortable talking about that on air, but in terms of pricing, what kind of ballpark would maybe an individual agent and then maybe a broker look at? If they were doing budgeting, what would they expect to be laying out for their Docusign tools?
Literally, it's about $20 a month. We do have a plan that's as low as $10, but it's limited in terms of how many signatures. But the reality, maybe that's how you get started. And I always encourage people. It's got to be something that A, you feel comfortable with, and B, you know how to use. And so I encourage people, start with the free trial, sign a couple of documents, send things out to your clients and try it. And I'll tell you, to be a part of to work with the National Association of Realtors, it's not as simple as they just said, okay, we're going to go pick someone to be e-signature. They've got, they put us through legal due diligence, they put us through technical due diligence, and they've done their homework. And, one of the things I tell people all the time, especially in real estate, is, if you look at our customer list, it's, the likes of Starbucks, American Express, T-Mobile, all these just massive companies. And I say, think about this for a second, twofold. One is, think about all those companies. They're all big companies. They have legal departments. They have, finance departments. They have technology departments. And they've put us through the ringers, and rightly so, to make sure it's the right technology for them. And so they've really done that homework to make sure we're the right company. And hopefully that makes the agents feel a little bit more comfortable that all of these big companies across the globe have really researched, and they've all chosen Docusign. But secondly, think about how comfortable your client is. When you go sit down with someone that's looking to list their property or buy a property, and you say, okay, we're going to sign using Docusign, and they're like, oh, I use this at work. Fantastic. And so it really lends credibility and comfort to that process.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you guys get another benefit, too. In terms of, and I don't know if people have necessarily thought of this, but in terms of the environmental impact, right? Because you guys are saving trees. You guys are saving entire forests, really, when it comes to preventing people from putting stuff out just for that darn signature. Is that something that you guys track? Is that something that you think about often in terms of, what you guys are really doing by letting people do this all digitally instead of having to cut down, and just take forests entirely out, just for that signature?
Yeah, it is certainly one of the important things that we've thought about all along, is that environmental impact. And it's not just, if you think about it, it's not just the paper savings, but think about how many times you don't have to get in your car and use gasoline and pollute the environment. And, I know we're talking big picture here, but think about how many signatures, how many trips we've saved for just real estate for getting a signature. It really starts adding up to having a meaningful impact. And one of my favorite stories, actually a guest of yours from earlier this year, Madison Hildebrand, who is an ambassador for Docusign, he was telling the story, and I loved it. He was actually, I don't remember if it was like Costa Rica or somewhere in Central America, and he had a client he was working with, and he was trying to help that particular client, and he didn't have access, or the client didn't have access to any technology. And he's like, oh, I can just send it down there, and they're going to Docusign it. And so I thought it was kind of neat and ironic and many different things rolled in that he has a person signing in a rainforest using Docusign electronic signature, which in turn protects that environment for them to be there and enjoy it 10 or 50 years from now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and when you think about it, again, that's one of the things that makes it so exciting is that, of all this stuff that goes into going paperless, and I think a lot of people kind of miss that, but I've been in 2 or 3 offices that have, quote-unquote, gone paperless, and the sticking point is always that signature. That's the piece, Yep. Now, I guess another sticking point, too, is the document management side of this, and it sounds like that really was something you guys were doing with Kartavi. So that maybe not as critical as the signature, but then there's the storage and management of those files. So it sounds like that's something that Docusign is really kind of pushing forward with as well, right?
Well, it becomes that holistic solution or the hub for the transaction for us. And when you think about what needs to get done to drive that transaction forward, it's getting people together, it's storing, it's sharing documents, it's signing, because the reality is, right, documents drive a real estate transaction, appraisals, surveys, disclosures, and certain people need them at certain points in time during the transaction. And how nice is it that you actually know if they've looked at it, you've got a record of it, and you can even get instant notifications when someone has done something. So you know that kind of they have that comfort things are moving forward. And so, the signature in one piece in isolation is great, but still isn't, that 1 + 1 = 3. The ability to store a document or share it isn't that in and of itself kind of the most important. But when you put all of it together and do it in a simple way, in a way that is highly mobile, in a way that's secure and protected, that's where you really the magic happens. And what we've tried to do is do so in a manner that makes it simple for people to use, is mobile, and it's secure, so that people feel comfortable with it. And and that's the key. Is what we want to do is make sure that people, our realtors and real estate professionals, have a single place to go and a hub to start having all of these important pieces and components of the transaction together in one place.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us back to the time savings piece, right? Because, we talked about you're saving trees, you're saving gas. Ultimately, you're saving time and money, for agents. Now, have you guys looked at, I don't know if there's any way to calculate it, but have you ever looked at how much this probably saves the average agent per year?
Yeah, we certainly have, and and we have estimates. Like we just talked to a broker that we're working with, and the broker figured that it would to save the average agent a couple of hours a week, and their average transaction coordinator an hour and a half a day in just being able to track down documents, and so that's an impact. But it's also the little things that are really important to us. Is imagine you have a client that you're working with, right? Real estate market's heating up, and so I'm hearing all over the country where you're dealing with multiple offers, and in some cases dozens of offers in California that I've been hearing stories of lately. But time is of the essence again, and the ability, imagine you're out, right? And the reality is realtors don't have hours, right? It's not like a banker goes in at 8 o'clock in the morning, comes, leaves at 5 o'clock. A realtor, as I learned firsthand with a wife who is a realtor to this day, is a realtor's always on. And if someone calls and it's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night and calls my wife and they need something related to one of their transactions, it's one thing to say, okay, noted, I got it. When I get back to my house in 3 hours or 2 hours, I'll fax it or email it to you. Or while you've got that person on the phone, say, okay, how would you like it? I can share it with you in the transaction room. I can email it to you. I can fax it to you. How do you prefer? And I'll take care of it right now. That's when you're really up in the game in the industry and really helping deliver that exceptional experience that we're striving for.
Yeah, that almost reminds me of, again, this is going back to the 90s, early 2000s, but remember just-in-time management, just-in-time this, that, and the other thing, and it was production lines and IT stuff. Everything was JIT, and it almost sounds like it's kind of like JIT documents, I guess, in this case.
Well, I mean, think of the reaction if you're the client, right, and you're trying to buy a property and you need to see disclosures or, hey, a simple thing, can I have a pet in this particular, townhome or condo, or can I put a fence up for my dog? And I want, time is of the essence. We're in a now society, right? I mean, people's expectation is, if I'm calling you right now, Tim, as my agent, I'm thinking about it now. How nice is it for you to turn around and deliver right now and just exceed my expectations? But, it's a matter of that's where the expectations are these days. And what we want to do is enable you to deliver on that promise back to your client.
Absolutely. Well, Glenn, on that note, we're almost out of time for today, so I want to thank you again for joining us. And you had said that if agents want to get started, and I believe that the link was docusign.com/realestate. Was that the URL?
That's correct. And you can find us on Facebook under Docusign, under Twitter as well at Docusign. So if you Google us, you'll find us. If you look for us on Twitter, Facebook, or even on the web, we're there. And we're really interested in continuing to collaborate and work together in real estate and do our part to continue to move the industry forward.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I can't thank you enough for what you guys have done for my business, and I would say probably on behalf of all the agents out there who have used DocuSign, I bet that if they stopped to think about it, they'd be incredibly thankful for what you guys are doing. But for agents again who want to get involved, who want to learn more, I would say docusign.com/realestate would probably be the URL that's more specific to their needs. And then, do you have any closing thoughts for our audience before we take off?
No, I would just say, just as you said, thank you for what we do. Our return is thank you for trusting in us. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your business and to help deliver on what is one of the greatest dreams in America, and that's to own a home. And so for us, that's really important. It's something we think about every day, and we're honored to be a part of your business as well.
Well, on that note, I want to say thank you again to Glenn for joining us, and I want to thank each and every one of you in our audience. This has been Casual Friday. I'm Tim Ventura, and that is it for this week. Tim and Julie Harris will be talking to you again on Monday.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.